Welcome to Face Not Found. I am Nina the Diva. Some of you may know me from TikTok. I used to have an account, Nina the Diva 1309. It got banned. And it got banned because I dedicated the month of February to Black History Month. And Black history is not pretty. And we all know that TikTok is heavily censored. So my page got taken down. I do have a new page, Nina the Diva, NINADADIVART, and you can follow me there. I'll be throwing not synopsis, but little sneak peeks of what the podcast for the week will be. But this is where I'm going to come to discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly. I have a link in on my TikTok profile where you can submit an anonymous confession, or you could do it through DM also. But this podcast will focus on everything female. This week it'll be true crime. It won't be true crime every week. One day I'll give you one week I'll give you something heavy. Another week I'll give you something light, because we do have anonymous confessions that I need to put out there. I have a lot to say. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, if you forgot her name, I am here to help you remember it. Breonna Taylor. People, what do you know about Breonna Taylor? The average response I get is that she was a black woman sleeping in her home, and she was an EMT, and the police were looking for her boyfriend because he was a drug dealer, and they shot into the apartment. This is the average story, and I am here to set the record straight from all my research, because this was a case that was real heavy on my mind for a long time. Not only because she was beautiful and she was black and she was part of the healthcare system, just like me, but because I felt like there was so much more into it, and boy, is there so much more into it. And I want to humanize her a little more, because she was used for the Say Her Name campaign, but she wasn't just an EMT. She wasn't just another black woman. Breonna Taylor was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan on June 5th, 1993, which would make her a Gemini. She was born to Tamika and Everett Taylor. She had a best friend growing up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and around 2008, her mom wanted to be closer to her sister, which would be Breonna's aunt, so they moved to Louisville, Kentucky. Breonna has a younger sister who I believe, I don't want to botch any names here, but the way I'm reading it is Janiyah Taylor. They attended Western High School over there in Kentucky. Breonna was an honor roll student. She enjoyed mathematics. Her teachers said she was a natural leader. She was very compassionate. She would win awards for her academics, but she wouldn't attend ceremonies because she didn't want to be looked at as a nerd. And I thought that detail was so funny. She held various jobs while she was in high school. She's described by friends and family as super fun, super goofy. She loved to tell jokes, but she wasn't really good at it, her sister says. She was just an all-around good person, full of life. If you go and search her up, she has the most beautiful smile. She has a beautiful face. She was 6 years older than her sister, but her sister would say that Breonna was sort of a second, like a second mother to her. And even after moving from Michigan to Kentucky, her and her best friend, childhood best friend, were still so close and would often visit each other. So much so that when her best friend had her first son, she made Breonna the godmother. So off the bat, I'm already seeing someone so full of joy, so full of life, a good friend, a good sister, a good daughter, um, a, a law-abiding citizen, adding to the taxes, uh, a good person. She met Kenneth Walker the third. At first they were just friends, but later he bought her an engagement ring. They were on and off. As the sisters grew up, they became each other's personal diary, according to Janaya. They would snuggle in bed and watch TV. And this is Breonna Taylor. She's not just another name. She went through relationship ups and downs just like everyone else. So her on and off and on again boyfriends were Kenneth Walker and Jamarcus Glover. Now, before we get to the details of the case, it is important to note that neither Breonna or Walker had criminal histories. They were completely clean. In 2011, Breonna graduated high school, and from there she got her certificate as an EMT. She was working on her credit and saving up for a home. So this was a girl who who thought she had her whole life ahead of her, and didn't know it was coming to an end so soon. She was an EMT until 2016 because her certification expired, which is another thing the media gets wrong because all they say is, black EMT worker shot dead at home. She wasn't an EMT at the time she died. She was an EMT and her certification expired, not because she was lazy or irresponsible, but because she started working full-time at UOFL Hospital as an ER tech, and she was working per diem, also known as like as needed, in another hospital. I believe it was Nathan or Norton Hospital, one of those. She was planning out her career path. She was gonna be a nurse, and she was juggling between being a trauma nurse and a neonatal nurse. So this wonderful person was going to dedicate her life to helping people. March 12, 2020, a judge approved 5 warrants for locations linked to her ex-boyfriend, Jamarcus Glover. So he was suspected of supplying a local drug house. Breonna's home was one of those 5 locations because back in January, police saw Glover leave Breonna's apartment with a package and go directly to a known drug house. So basically, a judge approved a warrant to go into someone's home simply because they saw him coming out of her apartment 3 months prior. Now, according to Kenneth Walker, on March 12, 2020, it was a normal day. They went out to eat. They meaning Breonna and Walker. They went home. They played Uno, and they went to bed to watch a movie. Now, while all of this is happening throughout the day, because remember, a lot of people say, oh, the police went to her home because they were looking for her ex drug dealer boyfriend. Well, while all of this is going on, DeMarcus Glover is already in custody on unrelated charges. Okay? They were looking for drugs and money. They were not looking for Glover. He was not there, which makes it just even worse to me. You're going to come and destroy and come with this brutal force, not for another human, but to collect drugs and money. Make it make sense to me, because maybe I'm just getting fired up here, but let's keep going. So about 12:40 a.m. on March 13th, so we're going from March 12th at night to March 13th, 12:40 in the morning. Walker says they heard a loud bang. So Taylor and Walker are screaming, "Who is it?" from their bedroom, and they did not identify themselves. Now, police later say that there was a witness, a neighbor, who says that they did identify themselves. However, no witness was ever found. Okay? And this was a no-knock warrant. So they didn't identify themselves. I don't care what they say. They didn't identify themselves. So Walker says that they got up to put on clothes to be decent. And while they're putting on their clothes, they're asking, "Who is it?" And they're not announcing themselves. So the way Taylor's apartment is set up is that if you stand directly at the doorway, to the left would be a kitchen. Further down would be the bathroom. Towards your right will be a living room. And further down will be a bedroom, which is assumed to be Jania's bedroom. However, Jania was not in the apartment at the time of the shooting. And directly down the hall is the master bedroom, which spans the entire back of the apartment. So from the front door, you can see the master bedroom. It's a long hallway. So Walker says that they put on the clothes to be decent. Walker grabbed his gun, which he is licensed for. He's a registered gun owner. Because no one is announcing themselves, and his life and Breonna's life could be in danger. At this point, they're walking out of the master bedroom, and Breonna is scared and is holding Walker's hand. The door then flies off the hinges, and Walker fires a single shot. One. Because he's thinking they're getting robbed. At that moment, 3 officers fire blindly into the apartment. 32 shots were fired. Walker says he kneeled down to the floor to avoid the gunfire, and he's pulling on Breonna's hand, and all she's doing is screaming, and she's just stuck there. The poor thing is probably shocked in place. The gunshots stop. Okay, everything is smoky. Walker's holding Taylor alive, but she's bleeding out. At first, Walker calls his mom. Now, a lot of people say, "Well, what the hell? Why wouldn't you call 911?" Listen, if I think this is it, this is the big one, I'm about to go, I'm calling my mama first. Okay? Now, mom tells him, to hang up and call 911. Walker calls 911, frantic. I'm I did not listen to the 911 call, but after he calls 911, he hangs up and calls Taylor's mom. Once the smoke clears and he can see better, he spots police and he's thinking, oh, the police are already here. They're here to help us. Wow, that was fast. Or maybe a neighbor called, because they're there very quick. But as he steps out of the apartment, guns are drawn towards him. And they're screaming at him to, put his hands up. And an officer asks him, allegedly, okay, this is what Walker says, that the officer asked him if he was hit. Walker responds no, and the officer says, well, that's unfortunate. Motherfucker. Body cam footage shows Walker in distress, pleading for help, and officers ignoring his pleas and ordering him to walk with his hands up. He's handcuffed and dragged on gravel because he's barefooted. He says that to this day he still has scars underneath his feet. And body cam also show that the officers go and case out the apartment while Breonna is bleeding out. They're looking for this drug and money, and they don't find anything. And one officer is heard on the body cam saying, "Move out, she's done." So Breonna Taylor died right then and there. They take Walker in the car, in a squad car, and now he's not taken directly to a precinct. No, he's not. Oh, well, where did they take him to? They take him to a random parking lot. Why? I don't think that's standard operating procedure. What's going on here? Why am I being taken to a random parking lot? He gets taken to this parking lot, and he says there's a sudden change in the police officer's demeanor and the way that they're talking to him. He says that they're talking to him in a softer tone, and that there's been a miscommunication. What that mean? What that is? They ask him if he needs anything. The man was just shot at 32 times, and his girl is bleeding out on the floor, and I don't know why you were knocking on my door. What the fuck do you mean if I need anything? But he's taken to the station after that, and he's even allowed to walk in without handcuffs, because at this point the cops are probably like, fuck, I think we fucked this up, guys. So Walker gets charged with attempted murder of a police officer. Charges were later dropped, but this is what he's being charged with at the moment in order to keep him in jail and put him in a cell. Walker's not told that his woman is dead. He finds out because he's sitting in his cell, and somewhere around the vicinity there's a TV on. They're describing the crime scene, and he knows that it's his crime scene, and one female dead. So that's how he finds out that his fiance is dead. Now, an officer does get fired. Okay, 1 out of the 3. Brett Hankinson is fired, not for killing Taylor, but for violating two SOPs, which means standard operating procedure. He violated obedience to rules and regulations and used deadly force with no facts that the force was being directed at whatever the threat was, and for blindly firing 10 shots and putting her neighbors at danger. There were shots that went into the neighbor's house, and in that house was a child, a man, and a pregnant woman. Louisville police chief called his conduct a shock to conscience. This is what he was fired over. Not for killing an innocent woman, okay? But for firing blindly and having 10 of those shots go into the neighbor's apartment. And they know he shot blindly because it was 10 of those rounds were fired through a patio door and a window that were covered and prevented from seeing inside. In the end, surprise, surprise, they find no drugs and no money. Oh my God. How can that be? Breonna's autopsy showed 5 penetrating and perforating wounds to the torso, left upper extremity, left and lower extremity, hemorrhages along the wound path, hemopericardium, which means blood around the heart, and the left hemothorax, which means blood in her left lung. The tox screens find no drugs, no alcohol. So even though she went out with her boo that day, she didn't have no drinks, and if she did, they were long gone out of her system, and baby girl did not do drugs. Okay? She was just killed while being black. End of story. Her family sued, and a settlement was reached of $12 million. Although one of the officers were fired, no one was ever charged with Breonna's death. It meant nothing. And that's how she was added to the Say Her Name campaign. Now, I want to end her episode with a quote from her mom, Tamika Powell. Quote, "She died that day, but every day I don't get to see her or talk to her or be a part of her life, I feel like I'm dying." End quote. I'm very sorry, Tamika. Your daughter deserved better. I'm not a fortune teller, but had Breonna lived, she would have been great for humanity. This is a name that no one should ever forget. Breonna Taylor. That's the end of the first episode. If you want me to do a true crime deep dive on a name that you think no one's ever heard of, or someone you don't want the world to forget, you can send me an email at Nina, N-I-N-A, Diva, D-I-V-A, podcast at gmail.com. You can reach out to me on Instagram, Nina the Diva 1309. You can reach me on TikTok, Nina the Diva RT. And until next time, folks, love you, thank you, bye.